The cemetery was never silent. People said it was, but they were wrong. At night, the air carried sounds you weren't supposed to notice. Thin, scraping noises under the soil, the faint knock of stones settling, the whistle of wind that sometimes resembled a voice. I walked the gravel path with my flashlight in one hand and the gate keys in the other. Midnight patrol. Just another shift. My boots crunched louder than they should have, as if the ground wanted me to know how small I was. That's when I saw it. Tucked beneath the rusted lantern by the entrance gate was a folded piece of paper. Old, yellowed, damp at the edges. I thought it was trash at first, until I noticed the words scrawled across the front in thick black ink. My chest tightened. I shouldn't have touched it, but my hand moved anyway. The paper crackled as I unfolded it, careful not to tear the fragile fibers. The list inside was short, the writing jagged. Hurried. The first line read, Rule 1, never look between the graves after the bell. My mouth went dry. The next lines were blurred, ink smeared as though by rain or by fingers. I brought the paper closer, squinting, and the iron church bell in the distance struck once, then twice. The vibrations rolled through the ground, rattling the gate hinges, and before I could look away, my flashlight beam slid across the headstones. There was a gap between two graves, just wide enough for someone to stand inside. Something was there, something waiting. The bell tolled midnight. I froze where I stood, beam fixed between the stones. I could have sworn a shape leaned there, just outside the reach of the light. A shoulder, the faint outline of a head, the kind of silhouette your eyes invent when they're searching too hard. The bell's echo died, and the space was empty again. I shut the paper, shoved it in my pocket, and forced myself to keep walking. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of the shadows. Still, my hand wouldn't stop brushing the pocket where the rules list burned against my thigh. The cemetery stretched wide, older than the town that surrounded it. The graves closest to the gate were new, clean marble crosses, polished plaques, names still sharp on the stone. But farther back, the ground swelled into crooked hills and the markers grew ancient. Worn faces of angels leaned forward as if listening, moss-covered names I couldn't read. Some plots were nothing more than slabs of rock jutting out like teeth. The air smelled of iron and wet earth. My flashlight kept catching things I didn't want to see. Eyes carved into statues, streaks of black mold creeping down the faces of headstones. One grave had a teddy bear propped on top, its fur matted from rain, its head tilted as though straining to hear me. I'd taken this job because no one else wanted it. 3 nights a week, minimum wage, benefits if I lasted the year. My supervisor had been blunt. Most guards quit before 6 months, he'd said, handing me the keys. It's not the hours, it's the hours. That made no sense at the time, but I didn't press. I needed the money. Tonight was only my 4th shift. The office sat on the cemetery's edge, a shack with peeling white paint and a single bulb that never stopped humming. I made it there without looking back at the graves. Inside, I locked the door and sat at the desk, willing my hands to stop shaking. The rules list. I pulled it free again. Most of the ink had smeared into dark blotches, but a few words could still be read. Rule 2. If you hear the knocking, do not answer. Rule 3. The child is not a child. Rule 4. Keep your eyes down when the song begins. The rest was illegible, letters lost to time. I laughed, too loudly in the small shack. It had to be a prank. Some bored kid leaving creepy notes to spook the guard. I almost crumpled the paper to throw it away, but I couldn't. Something in the hurried, frantic handwriting felt wrong. The door creaked. I snapped my head up. The knob trembled. One slow turn, then silence. Locked, I muttered, forcing the word out. It's locked. Still, I stayed in the chair, hand on the desk, holding my breath. A sound followed, a dragging shuffle right outside the thin walls. The steps scraped against gravel, pausing directly in front of the window. I didn't look. Instead, I remembered what I'd just read. If you hear the knocking, do not answer. There was no knocking, but the idea rooted itself deep in my skull. The scrape of footsteps was close enough to touch. Then, as though it had been waiting for me to think it, the sound came. 3 sharp knocks against the glass. I didn't move. The knocking stopped. A hiss of wind pushed against the shack, rattling the bulb above me until it flickered out. I sat in darkness, and in the dark, a voice whispered through the wall, low and broken. Guard. My throat closed. The bulb blinked back to life. The gravel outside was empty. I pushed back from the desk, nearly tripping over the chair as I stumbled to the door. Enough. I wanted to go home. I wanted to forget the note, forget the shift, forget the way my name had sounded in that ruined voice. The night air was colder than before. My flashlight sputtered as I stepped back onto the path. The graves stretched silent in all directions, their shadows leaning closer now. That's when I saw him. At the far end of the path, near the old angel statue, stood the groundskeeper, Mr. Harlow. I'd seen him twice before. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, always carrying his lantern instead of a flashlight. He never smiled. Tonight he just stood there waiting for me to notice. "Harlow," I called, my voice breaking. Were you just outside the shack?" He didn't answer right away, just raised the lantern higher. The flame burned a sickly orange. When he spoke, his voice was barely louder than the wind. "Don't break the rules. That's all you need to know." The lantern blew out. The path was empty. I didn't sleep that night. By the time my shift ended and dawn rolled pale across the stones, I was still pacing the gravel paths, clutching the rules list in my pocket like a relic. The gates creaked open at 6, and I walked out without looking back. The town was just waking. Streetlights clicked off, shop windows lit up, coffee brewed in kitchens. It felt alien, like a dream. People moved with purpose, smiling, yawning, unaware of what breathed only a mile away in the dark. I should have quit. But when evening came, I found myself back at the cemetery gates, keys rattling in my hand, as if the place had tethered me. Nights blurred together after that. I told myself the first incident was nothing, a hallucination, exhaustion. But the rules list stayed on my desk in the shack. Every patrol I walked, every grave I passed, my eyes strayed toward the shadows between stones, toward the gaps, and something began to answer. First, it was whispers, faint, like voices overheard through a wall, rising and falling just beyond understanding. I caught fragments. "Help me," or "You shouldn't be here." Sometimes laughter, thin and childlike. Other nights it was movement. Statues shifted, not much, but enough. The angel near the path lowered its head a fraction one night, wings slightly more open than before. Another morning I noticed footprints pressed into the dirt between two graves. Though the soil was too soft to hold them for long, I never saw anyone leave them. The townsfolk knew something. I caught it in their eyes when I wore my uniform to buy groceries. They wouldn't ask me how the job was going. They wouldn't meet my gaze. At the diner, 2 men in work boots muttered when I sat down. "Fourth guard this year," one said. "Won't last," the other replied. I leaned over. "What do you mean, won't last?" The first man flinched. The second just smirked, bitter lines creasing his face. "Ask Harlow," he said, but the groundskeeper never spoke to me again. I saw him often, his lantern always lit, drifting through the older sections of the cemetery. Whenever I tried to approach, he walked the other way. It was on my 9th shift that I broke my first rule. The night was fog-heavy. My flashlight beam swallowed before it reached the nearest stones. I stayed close to the path, counting steps to calm myself when I heard it. A soft voice behind me. "Mister? Have you seen my doll?" I froze. The fog shifted. A small figure stood in the grass, half hidden behind a grave. No taller than a child, hair limp and black, dress gray with damp. I couldn't see her face. My chest tightened. I remembered the list. Rule 3, the child is not a child. She took a step closer. Her feet made no sound on the wet ground. "I lost her," the voice whispered. "She's crying." Something inside me screamed to run. But another part, the human part, ached. The way she held her arms out, trembling, almost broke me. "Where?" My voice cracked. "Where did you lose her?" The instant the words left my mouth, the fog shifted again. The figure was gone. Behind me, closer than breath, a voice rasped, "You shouldn't have answered." Cold fingers brushed my neck. I spun, swinging my flashlight wildly. Heart hammering, but nothing was there. Nothing but the graves, the fog, and the suffocating silence. The rest of the shift, I walked with my head down, muttering apologies to no one. That night changed things. The rules weren't just warnings. They were promises. And I had broken one. I expected something to happen immediately, claws dragging me into the soil, voices swallowing my mind. But the night passed and the dawn came again. I told myself maybe I'd gotten lucky, but I was wrong. 3 days later on patrol, I saw the doll. It lay on the gravel path, damp and filthy, one glass eye missing. Its dress was rotted lace, threads clinging to the seams. I bent closer. The dirt beneath it was wet, fresh, as if someone had just pulled it from the earth. A giggle echoed from between the graves. I didn't touch the doll. I ran back to the shack, slammed the door, and pressed my back against it until the bulb above me steadied. That night, I dreamed of soil pouring into my mouth, choking me. Desperation gnawed at me. I needed answers. I tracked down one of the old guards, a man named Dwyer who had quit 2 years back. I found him in a bar at the edge of town, hunched over whiskey, eyes red-veined and empty. I introduced myself. Told him I'd taken the job. His hand froze on the glass. "Then you're already dead," he said. "Please," I begged. "What are the rules?" "What happens if—" He grabbed my wrist hard enough to bruise. His nails dug into my skin. "Don't talk about them. Don't you ever say them out loud." "Why?" "Because that's how they hear you." I tried to pull back, but his grip tightened. His eyes darted around the bar as though someone might be listening. "You think they're just names on stones? They're not dead, boy. Not all of them. Some wait, some want out. And the rules, they keep you from inviting them." He shoved me away, chest heaving. "Leave the job. Tonight. Don't end up like me." He lifted his sleeve. Scars crawled up his arm. Long, thin, parallel scratches, the kind that weren't made by any tool. I left him there, shaking. I wanted to quit. God knows I wanted to. But when I called the supervisor to hand in my resignation, the line was dead. Every attempt, the phone gave only static. And the next evening, the rules list was waiting for me again, not the original one. A new sheet, folded, tucked under the gate lantern, dry despite the rain. This time the handwriting was sharper, fresher. Rule 5. Do not let them speak your name twice. Rule 6. The graves that open are not for the dead. At the bottom, written darker than the rest, as if carved into the page, "You already broke one." I stared at that line until the letters seemed to shift. That night, I patrolled with my hands over my ears, but still I heard it, a low chorus weaving through the stones. Voices whispering my name, drawing it out, syllable by syllable. The second time they said it, I screamed until my throat tore, drowning the sound. I ran blind through the fog, desperate to make it back to the shack. The graves blurred into shadows, the paths twisting. I lost all sense of direction. Then I saw the angel statue. Its head was bent lower now, chin nearly to its chest, wings spread wide as though about to take flight, and beneath its stone gaze, an open grave yawned. Fresh black soil mounded at the edges. The coffin was gone. The air pressed heavy around me, the stench of rot rising. The rules list crinkled in my fist. The graves that open are not for the dead. A whisper slithered out of the hole. "They're for you." I stumbled back, shaking. But the soil shifted as if something inside was climbing upward. That was the moment I understood. The rules weren't just warnings. They were instructions, and I had already failed. I couldn't stay away, though every instinct screamed to run. Something about the cemetery kept me tethered, like the rules themselves weren't just written for survival, but to bind me here. The next night, the fog was worse. So thick I couldn't see my boots on the path. My flashlight beam dissolved in front of me, swallowed whole. The silence pressed against my ears until my own breath sounded foreign. The list weighed in my pocket, heavier than paper should be. I knew I'd broken one, maybe more. But I hadn't yet seen the cost, only glimpses. Tonight felt different. Tonight felt final. It began with the bell. I never saw the tower, only heard the toll. 12 deep chimes, vibrating through the soil, through the stones, through my bones. The ground itself seemed to breathe with each strike. When the last echo faded, I heard a new sound. Laughter. Soft, childlike, but wrong. It seemed to come from every direction at once. I pressed my back to the nearest headstone. "Where's my doll?" the voice cooed. I squeezed my eyes shut. I wouldn't answer again. I couldn't. The ground shifted. A small hand wrapped around my ankle. Cold, wet, pulling. My scream shattered the silence as I kicked free, stumbling back onto the path. The fog parted for an instant and I saw her. The child thing. Its dress clung like it had been buried, soaked with mud. Its head tilted, hair hanging in clumps. The face beneath wasn't a child's at all. Its mouth stretched too wide, corners splitting skin, teeth black and rotted. And its eyes, oh God, its eyes were hollow sockets filled with writhing worms. It whispered my name once, slowly, lingering. I clamped my hands over my ears before it could say it again. I ran blind. Past statues, past graves, through fog and whispers. The ground seemed to twist, every turn leading me deeper into the cemetery's heart. The air grew thicker, heavy with the stench of rot and something older, like dust sealed in a tomb. That's when I saw the lantern, flickering orange in the distance. Mr. Harlow, the groundskeeper. His gaunt shape stood in the fog, one arm raised, flame swaying. "Harlow," my voice broke, half plea, half demand. He didn't move, just waited until I reached him. His face was gray, lips trembling. The lantern flame bent sideways, as though drawn toward something I couldn't see. "You broke them," he rasped. His eyes never met mine. "Once is enough. They'll come. You knew about this?" "You knew all along." His shoulders sagged. "Why do you think no one lasts? Why do you think I'm still here? Someone has to keep them penned in. What are they?" At last he looked at me. His eyes were hollow pits, ringed with shadow. Not dead, not alive, just waiting. Before I could ask more, the fog split. A statue shifted. The angel that had bent its head lower each night now stood directly beside us, though I hadn't seen it move. Its stone eyes gleamed wet in the lantern light. Its wings stretched wider, joints cracking. The ground trembled. Behind it, graves yawned open one after another, soil spilling outward, empty coffins rattling in the dark. "They're waking," Harlow whispered. "Run!" He shoved the lantern into my chest. The flame nearly seared my hand. I turned, bolted through the fog. The laughter followed. So did the voices. They whispered my name again, twice. The second time, the syllables crawled into my skull like hooks. My knees buckled. A chorus rose behind me. Dozens of voices overlapping, hissing rules I already knew, breaking them aloud. Look between the graves. Answer the knocking. Speak with the child. Their words weren't warnings now. They were commands. I stumbled past a row of stones. Something moved between them. Not a figure, not quite. More like the outline of absence itself, darker than shadow. It stretched long, reaching toward me. The lantern sputtered in my hands. The song began, low at first, like humming through the soil. Then louder, climbing into a melody that made no sense, discordant, backwards. My skull vibrated with it. Rule 4. Keep your eyes down when the song begins. I dropped my gaze, stared at the ground, my boots, the gravel, the flame's reflection flickering on the stones, but my eyes wanted to rise. My neck strained. Something inside me begged to see. The song sharpened. A voice hissed in my ear, sweet, tender. "Look at us." I clenched my eyes shut, shaking, and then, against all will, I looked. The graves were open. And things were climbing out, not bodies, not skeletons. Things that had worn those shapes once but no longer fit them. Skin stretched thin like paper lanterns, glowing faintly from inside. Mouths unhinged, spilling soil instead of words. Limbs too long, bending wrong. One turned toward me. Soil trickled from its empty eye sockets as it smiled. The lantern flame died. Darkness swallowed me whole. I ran without light. My lungs burned, my legs heavy as lead. Whispers brushed past my face, fingers tugged at my clothes. When I stumbled into the shack, I slammed the door and bolted it, chest heaving. My hands shook as I lit the emergency candle, but the shack wasn't empty. Dwyer sat in the corner, the ex-guard I'd met at the bar. His skin was pale, eyes wide. He rocked back and forth, whispering to himself. "They said my name," he muttered. "Twice, twice, twice. How are you here?" My voice cracked. He looked up, lips trembling. "I never left." Something moved under his skin. His face twitched, stretching too wide. His mouth opened, and when he spoke again, it wasn't his voice. It was mine. "Guard." My stomach dropped. The rules list slipped from my pocket, fluttering to the floor. New words had been added, ink fresh and glistening. Rule 7. If you see yourself, it's already too late. The candle guttered. Dwyer, or the thing wearing him, smiled with my mouth. "Guard," it said again, slower this time. That was the second time. The walls of the shack bent inward. The bulb overhead shrieked before bursting, glass raining down. The candle went out. I pressed against the door, screaming, but the handle twisted under my weight. The lock fell away. The door opened. Fog poured inside, swallowing the room. Voices howled. Hands reached through the dark. Cold, wet hands. Hundreds of them. They dragged me out into the night. The cemetery was alive. Graves yawned. Statues leaned closer. The ground itself shifted, paths folding in on themselves like a maze. And everywhere voices. Whispering, singing, laughing. I was carried to the angel statue, now towering, wings stretched so wide they blotted out the sky. Its stone face had cracked open, revealing nothing but a hollow void inside. Harlow knelt before it, head bowed, lantern extinguished. His voice was barely audible. I told you, don't break the rules. The angel's wings closed around me. Darkness. I don't remember how I escaped. One moment, wings closed around me, the angel's hollow mouth pulling me into blackness. The next, I was lying outside the cemetery gates at dawn. My uniform soaked, my skin cold, my throat raw from screaming. The gates were shut. My keys were gone. I staggered into town like a man crawling out of a grave. People stared, then looked away. No one asked. No one offered help. They knew. By evening, I sat in my apartment with the curtains drawn, every light on. The rules list lay on the table in front of me. Same yellowed paper, same jagged writing, but new words bled across the bottom, ink so fresh it glistened under the lamp. Rule 8. If you leave, they will follow. I tried to burn it. The paper wouldn't catch. I tried to tear it. The fibers resisted, unyielding. When I dropped it in the trash, it was back on my table the next morning. I didn't go back to work. Didn't answer the calls from the cemetery office. Eventually, the phone stopped ringing altogether, but the rules stayed. At night, the knocking began again. First at the door, then at the walls. Then, impossibly, from beneath the bed. I never answered. The voice of the child returned, whispering through the vents. Have you seen my doll? I never replied. But some nights in half-sleep I almost did. I woke with my lips moving, shaping the words, not yet. The worst was the mirror. I caught my reflection smiling when I wasn't. Lips parting, eyes too wide. Once it spoke. The glass fogged over, and my own face whispered back at me. Guard. That was once. I haven't seen it a second time. Yet. The days blur. Food tastes like soil. Water smells faintly of rot. I haven't left the apartment in weeks. Shadows move wrong across the walls, too slow, too deliberate, and sometimes, when I turn my head too fast, I see them. Not fully, not like in the cemetery, just hints. Pale hands curling back into closets. The corner of a dress dragging behind the couch. Worms wriggling across the bathroom tile, gone when I blink. I think the rules followed me here, or maybe I never left the cemetery at all. The other day, someone slid a note under my door, folded yellowed paper. Same handwriting, same title. I opened it with shaking hands. It wasn't the old list. It was new, only one line. Rule 9. Someone else will find this list. Tell them nothing. Now I sit in silence, waiting for the knock. The rules are no longer warnings. They're my life, my confinement, my sentence. I know one day soon, someone will take my place. A new guard, tired and desperate, hired to walk the paths after midnight. He'll find the folded paper under the lantern. He'll read the first rule, and he'll think it's just a prank. And when he comes to me, because they always do, I'll have to look him in the eyes and say nothing. Because that's the final rule, isn't it? The rules don't save you. They only keep the horror moving. Tonight, the knocking is louder. 3 sharp raps against the bedroom door. I don't answer. The knob is turning. The candle flickers out. And in the silence, a voice I know too well, my own voice, whispers from the dark. Guard.